This is the Dallas Morning News.
Eat, Drink, DFW from the Dallas Morning News is made possible by Central Market.
Hello and welcome to Eat, Drink, DFW, the podcast from the Dallas Morning News food team. Each week we take a look at food and drink trends in North Texas, talk about restaurants in Dallas-Fort Worth, learn some new recipes, and sometimes even get tips from you, our listeners. I'm Claire Baller, a food writer at the Dallas Morning News, and this week is all about Michelin. We have the 2025 Texas Guide in hand, and we've got questions. That's all coming up right after this.
Central Market is really into food, like fish flown in so fresh it still has jet lag into food. Our sourdough starter has been around since grunge was a thing into food. We're talking more prime cuts than a greatest hits album into food. Central Market is really into food. If you are too, then we're the HQ for you, whether you're a make every recipe in the cookbook foodie or a my favorite recipe is reheat type who just digs the delectable. No place makes every day more delicious like Central Market. Really into food. Shop now at centralmarket.com.
For the latest food and restaurant news in Dallas-Fort Worth, visit dallasnews.com/food. Also, we love to hear from listeners, so email us at eatdrink@dallasnews.com if you have any questions or just want to chat. Today, I'm joined by Sarah Blaskovich and Anna Butler. Imelda Garcia is on vacation.
And you might be wondering why I am not hosting this week, and it's because my voice sounds like this, so I thought I would spare y'all as much as possible. It's really, really brutal.
We're glad you're here, Anna.
We're going to break down what happened at the second Michelin ceremony for Texas, but first, I have a little exercise for you both. What is the one adjective that comes to mind when you think of this year's results?
Strange.
Defeating.
Those are good ones. I would add disappointing. Sarah, can you talk us through the stars Dallas restaurants received this year?
Yes, it was a big year. We doubled the number of one Michelin-starred restaurants that we have in Dallas-Fort Worth. Both of those were in Dallas proper. But first, I want to sort of set the scene a little bit. I was there Tuesday night at this glitzy ceremony where chefs, they don't wear their aprons or their chef's coat anymore. They wear heels or dress shoes and suits and dresses, and everyone looks and feels wildly uncomfortable and is so nervous. Like, I had the pleasure and sort of displeasure of interviewing some chefs before they walked in the room. And while they were jovial, they didn't want to talk, right? They were like, I need to sit in my seat and hear what's about to happen. So you can feel that tension in the air. Now, this sophomore year was different than the first year. Stars were the star at the second Michelin ceremony. We learned at the end of the ceremony that all 15 one-star recipients in Texas from 2024 kept their stars in 2025. I did not think this was going to happen, so that was a huge feat. 3 more star-worthy restaurants were added, and we will tackle those in a second. But it's important that we look at stars specifically because that was what everybody was talking about this week. There are several other awards, and the bulk of them go to a single category called recommended. A recommended honor from Michelin means the company likes these restaurants and will list them on their website, but they haven't achieved star status yet. That huge number of recommended restaurants, here's the kicker, were not even announced out loud at the Michelin ceremony on Tuesday night.
Just feels like such a slight.
So yes, I know we're here for stars, and Michelin is famous for its stars. We all know that. But I was struck by this change on Tuesday night, and we should unpack what it means. What it means is Michelin is here to remind everyone what they're doing. They are awarding stars to the best restaurants in Texas and beyond. And inherently, they took the emphasis off of these 21 restaurants in DFW who were so happy to be recommended. It's with that understanding that we now move into talking about our 2-star recipients, I think.
Yeah, tell us more about those, Sarah.
All right, first was the biggest surprise of the night in any city in Texas. Dallas restaurant Momani received 1 Michelin star. Huge news, an incredible accomplishment for this French restaurant in Uptown Dallas. Now, a lot of people were shocked, including the chef and the owners who were in the room, because Momani opened September 2nd. Y'all look at your calendars. It is October, or if you're listening to this podcast a day late, November. This restaurant has been open fewer than 2 months. And on the night of the ceremony, Chef Christophe DeLillis was missing his 48th dinner ever at Momani. So what we are learning is that the Michelin inspectors decided that after 10, 20, 30, or 40 dinners, that they had eaten there enough times and understood Chef Christophe's food enough to give it an incredible Michelin star.
It's interesting to me that it is this restaurant in particular because Michelin is a French company and Mominy mainly serves French food. And they're like, man, you should definitely go eat at this French restaurant that has been open for less than 2 months in Dallas, Texas.
Totally agree. Yes, French company likes French food and likes further French chef. So Christophe Delillis was born and raised in Paris. He moved to the United States and worked for Joël Robuchon in Las Vegas for years, which is another French restaurant. And then this Frenchman comes to Texas and earns a star in a jiffy.
And we don't know yet, Sarah, if this is a record for Michelin, do we, of how quickly they have awarded a star to a restaurant that just opened?
I asked Michelin that exact question. And the answer was that they don't keep this kind of data on record.
What?
However, and here's a statement from our anonymous chief inspector, says Michelin, and I quote, "Suffice it to say, Chef Christophe Delillis has had a consistent background before opening Mominy, and multiple meals there proved the level of the cuisine at this new Dallas restaurant to be indicative of cuisine at the 1-star level." Said another way, his background preceded him.
What?
Okay, this is where we get into where I think a lot of people have had issues with this particular star. I don't know about you guys, but I heard from handfuls of people immediately following the ceremony who were so astounded, amazed, confused how a restaurant open for less than 2 months could be deemed worthy of a star. Now, that's not a knock on anything that Mominy is doing, but it is a point to highlight the fact that one of the 5 criteria that Michelin looks at is consistency over time. How do you measure that at a place that has been open for 47, 48 dinners? That is the question that I have heard from so many readers and listeners. What do you guys make of that?
I don't understand at what point we were supposed to get clued into the fact that you are allowed to use your past resume when you're a chef at a restaurant for this. That's the first time I've ever heard of that, actually.
Yeah, same. I mean, put another way, if a journalist wins a Pulitzer, it's like saying, well, we really liked that piece, but we also more liked all the other stuff you did in the last 10 years someplace else. And so we lobbed it all together.
It makes sense as a way to focus in or know where to look. Hey, I loved that chef's work at X restaurant. I'm excited to see what they do here. It is bonkers to be like, hey, even without the same backers, funding, farmers, that you can expect the same consistent performance for food when something's that young.
I want to read you something that is from Michelin's own website explaining their process for how they award restaurants. On an FAQ they have online, it says, if the head chef leaves, do you automatically remove the star from a restaurant? Michelin's response is not necessarily, as Michelin stars are awarded to the restaurant and not the chef. Sometimes the restaurant will promote the sous chef who is of equal talent to his or her predecessor. Others might hire a talented chef from another restaurant. We will simply return to the restaurant and see how well we eat. I think it is entirely fine if Michelin considers the background of a chef when they're awarding stars, but it seems like they need to make that pretty darn clear if that's what they're actually doing.
Well, and El Khalifa de Leon kept its star after its chef left. So I was like, we've seen that play out. That being said, they're saying we're watching the restaurant, not the chef. And it sounds like their answer is the complete opposite of that.
I also wonder if this was almost like a bit of a posthumous award for Joël Robuchon, who has died and who was our Mominy Chef Christophe's most important mentor. He worked for him, and by his account and the accounts of the Mominy owners, he cooks the way he cooks because of the philosophy that comes through this very famous French chef's restaurants. And I think there's a pedigree there that informed everything that our Dallas chef does. And he said to me right after the ceremony, quote, when I make my own dishes, I pass it through the Robuchon filter. I ask myself, do you think he would like that? And I love that if we can give them credit for what he is doing, which is furthering a late chef's mission, but under Christophe's own name, and here in Dallas instead of in the other cities where Robuchon had and has restaurants. I think that's really lovely. And you got to wonder if those Michelin inspectors almost like felt Chef Joël in the room or something. It's like a ghost of Joël's past at Mominy. And yes, I think it is so confusing. And the folks who won this award too were like, we were wondering why we got invited to the ceremony. We all kind of thought beforehand that maybe Mominy would be getting one of these special awards. You know, would they get a Young Chef Award? And is Chef Christophe young enough? I told him afterwards, I was like, how old are you? So I can write it down just in case I know next time if somebody's offering you a Young Chef Award. For the record, he's 37. And we both joked. He was like, I think I'm too old, you know, for a Young Chef Award, which he didn't win. I have no idea how old is too old. What I do know is that Michelin confirmed to the Dallas Morning News that there is no cutoff date for when a restaurant can win a Michelin award in Texas. So whereas for pretty much every other award ceremony, you know, if you enter a journalism award, they say it's for your work in this one calendar year, or they say it's from March of last year to March of this year or something like that. Michelin, in this instance and many instances, is not willing to fully explain itself. And because of its secretive practices, we allow it. And they can just sort of do what they feel like doing. And so what they felt like doing was including this brand new French restaurant that they really think is so at the top of its game that it was one of only 3 restaurants in Texas to get 1 Michelin star in 2025. It is incredible and strange and surprising.
I think if I was a restaurateur who had been running a restaurant for a while, I think it would be understandable to feel kind of frustrated by this.
Yes, during the ceremony, there were a group of restaurateurs that got up in the middle of the ceremony and left. And I don't know who they were. They came to my right side and they were not Dallas people. But what I think happened was they saw their names on the Bib list and were maybe hoping to get a higher honor than that. I can't say they were mad or not mad. I don't know anything about that. Maybe somebody just had to go to the bathroom and they decided that they had to get home. But a group just saw their name and left. And so, Claire, I think you're right. And you could make this analogy with some Dallas people, too. No one in town except Mominy advanced to a star. There was no graduating for existing restaurants that have been around 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And we could all name a restaurant we love that was star worthy. I don't know if a couple of restaurants in Dallas could earn a star in 2025, but we each had one maybe that we hoped might. And you got to think about those people, right? And then the new kid comes into town and makes French food in a town. Dallas used to be full of French food. And then now it's full of other stuff. And, you know, French is back and he does it so well that he wins a star. It's incredible. But man, it's got to be frustrating for other people to watch.
Although I'm frustrated by the fact that it seems a restaurant can be open for such a short time and that Michelin can say, we believe that you have proven consistency over time in that duration of time.
Yeah.
I do think that Mominy getting a star is a good thing for Dallas.
It is.
And that it will only benefit our restaurant scene here because I think it's going to be really motivating to a lot of people. And I think it sends a big message to restaurateurs or restaurant investors that, look, you can come here, open a restaurant, throw a lot of money at it, bring in a chef with a really strong background, and you could immediately get a star.
It is super important that we mention the second 1 Michelin-starred restaurant in Dallas. This is Tatsu Dallas in Deep Ellum, and it was our only Michelin star winner in 2024. So they, like the other 14 restaurants across the state awarded last year, they kept their star. And that is really hard. You are not guaranteed to keep your star. You do have to stay at the same level of excellence, which it seems Michelin inspectors believe that Tatsu did. An interesting insight into the ceremony, they invited all the new star recipients up on the stage, and Mominy was one of them. And then the existing star recipients, they listed all of them off all together, just kind of quick. And then they invited everybody up for a champagne toast and a picture. But there was no like really moment for those star recipients. So while getting your star again a second year is truly the biggest day of Tatsu's life, it felt wildly anticlimactic the way that Michelin put it together. And I don't really know why they did that. But, you know, sure, they all got up on stage. There was a champagne toast. And I'm telling you, lights up, show's over. So we do need to spend a little bit more time on Tatsu because I want our readers to understand just how special this restaurant is. And Claire, you spent time with the chef just a week or two ago. Can you just give kind of a drive-by of what Tatsu is and why it is unique in our town?
Yes, I spent a day with Chef Tatsu and his wife Hiroko, who run Tatsu Dallas. Chef Tatsu, of course, the kitchen is his domain, and Hiroko, she runs the front of house. They were telling me that the past year, since they earned their first Michelin star, has been really difficult. It was really stressful. And that stress and anxiety over maintaining what they did that Michelin found to be star-worthy was kind of ever present. Now, they come from New York, where they worked in very well-recognized top kitchens and are used to this kind of stress and pressure. And so it's not unfamiliar to them. But of course, it's very different when you are now over your own restaurant that has your name on it, in Chef Tatsu's case. You know, they were talking about how life with Michelin is just inherently stressful. That's not necessarily good or bad. It means that it pushes you to do the best work that you can. But once you achieve a star, there's not really much relief that comes from it, because the clock starts over right again of you being measured for the next year.
It makes me feel like if this is a theater performance, it's like no one ever turns the stage lights off of you.
Right.
And he just hopped in his car with Hiroko after the awards to drive back to Dallas because he had to pick up fish on Wednesday morning.
Yes, I loved that tidbit. So Claire spent time with him on a fish pickup a few weeks ago. Well, the night of the ceremony, I asked everybody, what are you doing to celebrate? Or, you know, what's kind of the plan after this? Because I just love, chefs celebrate well. They know how to have a late night dinner or drinks. And it's always fun to get a glimpse into that world. Well, Tatsu said, oh no, we're going home. And I said, like, now? And he said, well, yeah, the fish arrives Wednesday morning and it's Tuesday night. I said, well, will you sleep here and then get up really early and just drive straight to the airport? And they said, no, we will walk out of this ballroom and walk to our car and in the dark, drive back to Dallas now. We will sleep in our own bed and we will get up early, as we do every Wednesday morning, and as Claire did with them, and we will drive to the airport and get our fish. And, you know, can somebody else get the fish? No. And could it be moved to another day? No. They said, our restaurant is open tomorrow, and we are the people who run the restaurant, and we will be there.
When I asked Chef Tatsu, when I spent the day with him, what it would look like after the Michelin ceremony, that's exactly what he told me. And he said, because this is what it is. It's doing this every day and having to show up and perform at your best. They said, you never know when Michelin is coming. It could literally be the very next day after the ceremony. And you never know who the inspectors are. One funny thing they did tell me is they get diners every now and then who like to pretend as if they are an inspector, at least try to make it look as if they are.
No!
Yes. Yeah. They said they'll get diners who come in with very stern demeanors and will sit quietly and scribble notes as they dine. Anyway, I know that both Tatsu and Hiroko are feeling a lot of relief right now that they did maintain their star, but I also know that that relief is going to be very short-lived.
Okay, let's veer a little bit away from the stars right now. Claire, can you walk us through some of your key takeaways from the events? You put together a story on this that you can find at dallasnews.com/food.
I would say the biggest takeaway for this year is that out of the 30 DFW restaurants Michelin recognized this year, only 2 of those were not on last year's list.
That's like the same as last year.
Exactly.
It's just boring.
Also true. And those 2 restaurants that were added this year that were not on last year's list are both pretty much brand new. And those 2 are, of course, Mamani, and the other is Sushi Cozy, which opened this summer and was given the recommended designation. Another takeaway for this year is that this is the second year in a row that Dallas took home the special award for cocktails. This year, that was the first award announced for the night. So Dallas immediately started off with a bang. Sarah, I'm sure that was an exciting moment for you being in the room.
It really was. It was the first award last year, and it was the first award this year. So up comes exceptional cocktails. And then this year, Chaz Martin. And Chaz Martin was in the house, and, you know, we knew they were going to win something, but they didn't know this was coming to them. And because it was the first award, like, nobody clapped for like 2 seconds. I went like, ah, and somebody else went, yay. And then like the clapping started. And it wasn't for lack of excitement, but it was just more like, oh.
And so last year, this award went to Julian Schaefer at Rye, or at least who was formerly at Rye. And this year went to Chaz Martin. was a kind of a cool moment to see. I guess Michelin loves cocktails in Dallas.
Or does Michelin think the only food and drink thing that's worthy of high praise is French food, Japanese food, and cocktails in Dallas?
Oh,
Because if you look at it from a 30,000 foot view, right? Like what would we say about our own town? Quite a bit of steaks, some pretty interesting Southwest cuisine, lots of diverse cuisines now. What Michelin has said is cocktails, French food, Japanese food.
That's not wrong.
and that maybe gets to your last point, Claire, because what is Michelin saying about Fort Worth? And the answer was nothing.
So of the 5 cities represented in the guide for Texas, Fort Worth is the only one that did not have any new restaurants added this year. That, I think is a little surprising to see absolutely no change for Fort Worth.
They're ponying up just the same as the other metros are too. They also didn't get a specialty award last year or this year. I just think it's absolutely nutty.
And the 3 Fort Worth restaurants that were given designations last year didn't have any change in what they were awarded this year. So that was Panther City Barbecue, Birriera y Taqueria Cortez, and Goldie's Barbecue. And they were all on the list again this year. So what this means is that Fort Worth is the only city in the guide to not have a Michelin-starred restaurant, which also means that the title of the first restaurant to ever get a Michelin star in Fort Worth is still up for the taking, and I hope someone takes that on as a challenge.
Well, and we do need to reflect on the fact that when Michelin agreed to come to Texas, they agreed to a 3-year contract. We just finished our 2nd Michelin Guide ceremony in Texas. So we are promised a ceremony in 2026, and we are not promised something past that. There certainly will be news stories about whether the contract is extended or canceled. But sure, Claire, to your point, if for some reason Michelin decides that Texas wasn't worth being in and they spend their 3 years here and then they move on, we got one more shot for Fort Worth to prove that their food is really worthy. And I got a couple of restaurants there that I'm really disappointed didn't get higher praise.
So those were some high-level takeaways, but I want to get into what you guys really thought about what went down this year and why, Sarah, you thought the results were strange and why you, Anna, thought they were defeating.
My takeaway is that in year 2, Michelin phoned it in. 3 new Michelin stars this year in a state with hundreds of new restaurants in the past year. It shows that Michelin either doesn't care to more deeply research our restaurants or that they really truly aren't impressed with most of the new restaurants in Texas. It also shows that if they looked at existing restaurants, those that are more than a year old, across the state, they really weren't impressed with those either. Nobody graduated from being really good to excellent. Nobody. And we have chefs in Dallas who worked, I can think of 5, who did so much this year thinking that they could earn Michelin's interest in year 2 and didn't do it. And I don't think they'll stop trying. But you've got to think, if I can think of 5 in Dallas this year, that there has to be at least as many in Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. And almost none of those chefs were rewarded for their new tasting menus, for their special dinners, for the brand new presentations and everything that they did with their food, knowing Michelin was looking this year. And I find that really disappointing. On a positive note, I'll say San Antonio is a really great place to go eat. Of the 3 new stars offered, 2 were in San Antonio. And those restaurants are Isadore, which kept being mentioned. It got 1 Michelin star in San Antonio, but it also got a green star, which that's a huge night for this restaurant. And then another San Antonio restaurant, Nicosi. These are but 2 of a couple of reasons why I think taking that drive or flight to San Antonio from Dallas, if you want to go eat great food, sounds like now's the time. And that was the story for me from Michelin. Head south, because San Antonio is a place they were impressed by more than any other place.
Nicosi is the only restaurant that had any sort of upward momentum. So it had previously been recommended. It became a star this year. And I was really hoping we would see more movement on this list. I don't love drama, but the fact that everything was back year over year surprised me. I thought we'd see more of a shift. And if we didn't see a shift, I thought we would see more additions. And so why my word is defeating is, what's the point? So they came in, they took a snapshot in 2024. They said, this is what we have to work with. Okay, here's what y'all got in 2025. There's only 2 that are worthwhile for us. And that was really, really crazy to me because we have some outstanding restaurants that were not honored in 2024. I thought maybe they would get the picture or almost listen to feedback, maybe from us, maybe from other people about even just cuisines they didn't touch on, things that maybe they overdid. But I think it was a thought that a lot of people had last year with Michelin is, are we really going to let them dictate what our food scene really is? And I don't know if I felt that as strongly last year because it was the first year. This year, I deeply feel I don't know if I respect their opinions in Texas anymore. I've always used it for its Bib Gourmand and recommended when I've traveled internationally, and it is flawless. And if someone showed me this list and was like, here's where you should go eat in Dallas, I'd be like, there are some fabulous restaurants on here, but this isn't necessarily what I would tell someone visiting Dallas to go eat.
I think those are excellent points. And we use Michelin as tourists. And the whole point of the guide was to help tourists who want to spend some money on excellent food know where to go. I was left feeling this year like Michelin themselves are also tourists in our Texas towns. And they are, in fact, because Michelin told the Dallas Morning News that these inspectors don't live here. So they have to fly to Texas, figure out where to stay, probably in a Michelin Keys hotel, and then travel around trying all our food. And we knew that in advance, right? We knew that they weren't among us or us. But still, I agree with you, Anna. Last year, felt like a great start. But this year, it just really felt like they literally flew in, checked some stuff out, and then went like, yes, no, yes, and then moved on like a tourist would.
What's interesting, too, is Michelin loves hotels in Fort Worth, but they're like, you're going to need to drive at least 35 miles to eat dinner here. I was like, did they just not go to the Chumley House? Like, Fort Worth had some interesting additions this year, not just ones that we felt were snubbed in 2024.
Totally. And Don Artemio, a place we haven't brought up yet, which we think is a lovely place in Fort Worth, is so close to many of the hotels that are on the Michelin Keys list.
I think these are all such good points. And really, you guys are hitting on everything that contributed to me feeling disappointed in how all of this went down. I really was disappointed to see no new additions for recommended or Bib here in Dallas. I know we saw one additional recommended, but I think there are others that definitely could have been on that list. Speaking of Bibs, we've talked about this for last year and it remains the same this year. It is a hard sell to tell people here in North Texas that dining at Lucia and Matheba is an affordable experience. Their food is incredible, and I think that it deserves to be acknowledged. I don't think it's fair to consider it value-driven food. I think that if you try to eat there with value-driven dining in mind, you will probably leave rather hungry.
Well, their definition in 2024 to us was you could do an appetizer, an entree, and a glass of wine or a dessert for $50. They have altered it to say about $50.
Yes, and also it's 2 courses plus that wine or dessert for $50. I don't even think they specified that one had to be an entree. Because if you do that, y'all, the math doesn't math.
And it feels really tone deaf in this day and age when we know, and we're increasingly hearing from people every day who are having a hard time dining out with the way the economy is at the moment. And it just feels like this would be a great moment for Michelin to really step up and do what they do best, which is find really great food and do that in a way that actually really serves people looking for affordable eats.
Stay with me on this. But when a company grows too fast and they stop doing that thing that they did really well, because they grew too fast, they are adding new markets all the time. And my question is, do they have enough inspectors to do this? And I don't mean it unkindly, but I'm a little like, Sarah, you said that they phoned it in. Claire, you're like, I don't really know if they were looking. I don't know if they had time.
We've had conversations in the Dallas Morning News offices. Like if somebody pinned us down and said, hey, can you make a list of the best patios in town? We live here and we dine outdoors all the time. And even then we've had these comments of like, do we know enough in order to come up with a simple list that's quite focused, like best patios or best whatever, right? And then you think like these people who don't live here fly in and are told that you have to find our best food. And oh yeah, you need to also read all the news stories and know everything. That's an almost impossible ask. I don't even know how you do it. And this year we're finding in year 2, They could have done it better.
My adjective has changed.
Oh.
Because y'all got me fired up. It's gone from defeated to angry.
That's nothing that a really great dinner in Dallas can't fix, Anna.
I'm only going to go to one not on the list.
Obviously, you guys can tell we have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this, and we would love to hear yours. Send us your Michelin thoughts and hot takes at eatdrink@dallasnews.com, and you can find all of our Michelin coverage at dallasnews.com/food. We don't want you to miss an episode, so make sure you're following Eat Drink DFW wherever you find podcasts. Special thanks to our producer, Julie Fisk. For the news, I'm Claire Baller. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Eat, Drink DFW from the Dallas Morning News is made possible by Central Market.